The story begins at the prestigious MIT, where Professor Gerald is teaching a mathematics class. After the lecture, he announces that he will post a very difficult math problem on the board outside the classroom, promising that whoever solves it will have their name immortalized in golden letters at the college. He motivates the students by mentioning that some past solvers went on to become leaders in their fields and gives them until the end of the semester to work on it. Meanwhile, while hunting, a janitor at the college notices the problem, goes home, and solves it on his bathroom mirror. The next day, when no one is around, he writes the correct answer on the board, shocking everyone by solving it in just one day. Will spends most of his time hanging out with his friends, and one day at a baseball game, he sees a boy who used to bully him in school. Fueled by anger, he confronts and brutally beats him, but the police arrive before things escalate further. When an officer tries to stop him, Will attacks the officer and is arrested. Meanwhile, Professor Gerald discovers that the impossible math problem has been solved perfectly and is stunned when none of his top students claim credit. In his next packed class, he asks the mysterious genius to come forward to receive a prize, but no one steps up. He then writes another problem, one that took him 2 years to solve, believing even the unknown genius won't solve it quickly. At the same time, Will, freshly released from jail, returns to his cleaning job and immediately begins working on the new problem, only to be caught by Professor Gerald as he writes on the board "at first." Professor Gerald assumes the janitor was just randomly scribbling on the board, and when Will notices the professor approaching, he quickly runs away. Later, when the professor returns, he realizes that Will has actually solved the problem that took him 2 years to crack, finally understanding who the secret math genius really is. After work, Will meets his friends and goes to a bar for drinks, where his friend Chucky flirts with a group of attractive women and lies that he studies at MIT and is a genius. A man interrupts, asking Chucky which class he studies, and when Chucky says history, the man realizes he is lying and begins mocking him with history questions that Chucky cannot answer. Watching this, Will steps in and debates the man, effortlessly defeating him with his sharp memory and factual knowledge, ridiculing him for spending thousands of dollars on what Will learn for free at the public library. Humiliated, the man leaves, and one of the women, Skylar, impressed by Will's intelligence, gives him her phone number and asks him to call her later. Will later shows the number to the same man who tried to act smart. Meanwhile, Professor Gerald tracks down the janitor who solved his difficult problem, finds Will's contact information, and shows up at his court hearing, where Will is being tried for assaulting a police officer. Despite Will's attempts to defend himself, the judge highlights his past theft and assault charges and sends him to jail, setting a large bail. In jail, Professor Gerald meets Will and offers a deal. He will secure Will's release if he agrees to attend math sessions with him and also undergo counseling. Will laughs at the idea but agrees, not wanting to remain in jail. He soon begins math classes with Professor Gerald, who is amazed by his brilliance. But when it comes to counseling, Will refuses to open up, instead mocking the therapists by reading their books in advance and embarrassing them during the sessions as a last option. Professor Gerald asks his old friend Sean McGuire, now a psychology professor, to help him. At first, Sean refuses, saying he has no free time, but when Gerald explains that Will is extraordinarily gifted and could ruin his life if left unguided, Sean reluctantly agrees to meet him. Like the previous therapists, Will has already read Sean's book and tries to mock him, but Sean stays calm, speaking to Will normally without probing into his life. Will notices a painting Sean made and begins making wild assumptions about him, eventually bringing Sean's late wife into the conversation and insulting her. Sean loses his composure, grabs Will, and warns him never to disrespect his wife again. Will thinks he has finally broken another therapist, but to Gerald's surprise, Sean agrees to continue seeing him regularly. Afterward, Will goes on a date with Skylar, discovering that she comes from a wealthy family and studies at Harvard. They have a wonderful time together, ending the night with a kiss. In the next session, Sean takes Will to a park and explains that his arrogance is a shield for fear, warning that if he never opens up, he will lose all the good things life has to offer. Later, Will goes to work at a construction site with Chucky and struggles to call Skylar. During the following 2 therapy sessions, both sit in silence for an hour until Will finally breaks it with a joke. Seeing this as progress, Sean asks about Will's love life. Will admits he likes Skylar but believes she is too good for him and will eventually realize he is not worth her. Sean reassures him that no one is perfect, sharing a funny, human story about his wife, which makes them both laugh and strengthens their bond. By the end of the session, Will feels comfortable with Sean for the first time, and Sean encourages him to go talk to Skylar, reminding him that the session is already over. Following Sean's advice, Will goes to Skylar's college and asks her out again, but she says she cannot because she has a very difficult problem to solve that might take days. Will asks to see it and instantly solves it on a napkin, leaving her with no excuse, and they go on their second date. During the date, Skylar asks about Will's family, and he lies that he has 12 brothers, quickly making up names, which he later repeats perfectly, leaving her both suspicious and impressed. In his next therapy session, Will asks Sean if he ever regretted meeting his wife, since losing her left him lonely. Sean responds by sharing how he once skipped watching a legendary baseball game live just to spend time with the woman who became his wife, saying he never regretted it because those years were the most beautiful of his life. Later, Skylar asks why Will never introduces her to his friends or family, and although he has been lying about his past, he agrees to introduce her to his friends. They all meet at a bar and have a great time together. Meanwhile, Professor Gerald asks Sean about Will's progress, and Sean says Will is slowly opening up but still needs time. Gerald insists on finding Will a top job so his talent does not go to waste, but Sean strongly disagrees, saying Will should choose his own path. Will himself is not interested in such jobs and even sends Chucky to an interview in his place. One night, Skylar asks Will to move with her to California, which frightens him. When she confronts him about loving her and lying about his life, Will finally breaks down and reveals his painful childhood as an orphan who suffered abuse in foster homes. Skylar reassures him that she loves him and will stay with him no matter what, but Will pushes her away out of fear of being abandoned, lying that he does not love her and leaving her crying. Later, under pressure from Professor Gerald, Will agrees to take the job but does not genuinely try to pursue it. In a therapy session, when Sean asks whom he trusts most in his life, Will answers that he trusts his friend Chucky, and Sean agrees, saying Chucky is like a brother who would give his life for him. Sean tells Will that he cannot spend his entire life just hanging out with friends, and when asked how he plans to earn a living, Will says he will keep doing construction work forever because it is familiar and comfortable. Sean explains that hard labor has become Will's comfort zone, and that his fear of stepping outside it is preventing him from living a better life. Instead of forcing him to take the job Gerald suggests, Sean asks what Will truly wants to do. Will jokes and refuses to answer seriously, frustrating Sean, who tells him to leave. Will becomes angry but still cannot answer the question. Before Skylar leaves for California, Will calls her to say goodbye. When she tells him she loves him one last time, Will smiles but does not say it back, afraid of being hurt. Later, Will tells Chucky he will not take any job and that they will keep working construction together. But Chucky emotionally tells him that while he himself will still be there in 10 years, it would break his heart to see Will stuck there too, because he wants Will to do something meaningful with his life. Meanwhile, Gerald argues with Sean about Will's future, accusing him of letting Will waste his talent, but Sean explains that Will is afraid of abandonment. Will overhears this conversation. In their final therapy session, Sean shows Will photos of the abuse marks from his foster childhood and shares his own painful past, repeatedly telling Will that none of it was his fault. Will finally breaks down, hugs Sean, and cries, releasing years of buried pain. Ready to move forward, Will agrees to take one of the jobs Gerald arranged, ending his therapy, and Sean assures him that his door will always be open. Will's friends gift him an old car for his 21st birthday. Gerald apologizes to Sean for calling him a failure, and the two friends reconcile. As Sean prepares to travel the world, Will secretly leaves a letter in Sean's mailbox and disappears. When Chucky comes to pick him up for work and finds him gone, he smiles, realizing Will has finally chosen his own path. Later, Sean reads the letter and learns that Will did not take the job but instead went to California to be with Skylar, and he smiles proudly, knowing that the genius will finally live a good life.